May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, I'm sorry to say, but all good things must come to an end. And this sermon series that we've been going on since the beginning of September is now finally coming to its conclusion. To refresh your minds, just in case this wasn't in the forefront of them, we started off by talking about the importance of faith in troubled times. The first sermon talked about the nature of faith, what it is, the gracious aspect of faith. The second sermon talked about how peace is so important, particularly in troubled times. Peace in our souls, peace in interpersonal relationships, peace internationally. Then Christine preached about the nature of suffering and how we make sense of suffering. And then I preached about the problem of evil and different ways to think through that. And then we made a shift to think about tools now, tools for troubled times. And Zach preached about communion, spiritual communion, the importance of bread and fellowship as a tool for helping us in these times. And then last week we got to hear Christine preach about the nature of prayer and how important prayer is. And as I was thinking this week about these times, the times that we're in, one element stands out more than any other, and that's the element of fear. Perhaps it's something that you've felt in the last week, in the last month, in the last 6 months, this all-pervading sense of fear that seems to be out there. A fear of a loss of our country. Regardless of what side of the political aisle you might stand on, there is this fear that the country that we had somehow is slipping away. Those things that make us great are no longer there. It's fear at the center of it. People have fear that we're losing the important aspects about our culture. Things are changing too fast or perhaps not changing in the right ways. There's fear about people's prospects, economic prospects, about climate change, about whether or not you'll be able to put food on the table, what things will look like, the threats of AI. And there's also fear of retribution that seems more present in our society than at any time I can think of. You go back to a number of years ago with the rise of the cancel culture, where people were having to go back and scrub previous Twitter posts for fear that as things had changed, maybe they'd have to pay a penalty for something they might have said 5 years before. And then these days you have law firms or universities or press outlets that are afraid. Me personally, I stopped posting things online. I don't want to have that be out there for people to think about what I might be thinking. Particularly, I'm going to Israel in 2 weeks. I didn't want a situation where if I expressed views that I might have held, that might come back and make it so I couldn't get a visa or some other way affect me. This is not normal. This fear. I'm sure you feel it. And in addition to this fear, this pervading fear, we also have this sense of powerlessness. I mean, you sit back and you see the centibillionaires investing in our elections, and you're like, what good is my $100 contribution to whatever candidate I prefer? You see the norms in our society, the norms in our political system breaking down, and you're like, what can I actually do about that as just one person? You see people trapped in various ecosystems, and you feel like, what's even the point of talking to someone else? What good will it do? And so in this particular time when we feel so dispirited with this, how do we act? What do we do? The first thing we need to do in this moment is to actually express our agency. So often what makes us feel overwhelmed is that we think that we don't have agency. Whenever I feel overwhelmed or overly anxious, I don't know about you, and I feel like everything's crashing down, I'll make a list and I'll at least just start crossing off things in the list. And every time I at least do something towards my goal, it makes me feel better, it lowers my anxiety. In a time like this, when you feel powerless, when you see the fear out there, to actually do something, even if it's a small thing, to actually make an act, can be incredibly liberating. And another thing, so much of it, the source of fear is scarcity. So if you want a tool to deal with this fear, this culture of fear out there, there's nothing more powerful that you can do than to be generous. Generous towards others, generous with your time, generous with your money. Make that small action, and it can make a world of difference. This is precisely what the Apostle Paul is talking about in our reading from 2 Corinthians. The point is this: the one who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. The one who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. God loves a cheerful giver. There's this notion that if you give generously, again, of yourself, of your time, of your money, if you give generously in certain ways, it can transform and reframe your perspective on the world. Think about that time if you're in the grocery store and someone in front of you accidentally is trying to reach something up high and you can get it for them. At least that's true for me because I talk. Or you can do any kind of small act for someone else. Once you do that, not only does it make you feel better, it also makes the other person feel better, and it transforms, it reframes your whole outlook. One small action. You can do that again and again in all sorts of ways. You can commit to giving to organizations that you care about, that you value. And when I do that, it makes me feel joyful. I'm doing something to help something, to make the world better. And then I'm in a better mood, and I'm nicer to the person next to me, and the people who benefit are nicer to the person next to me. That's the nice thing about it. This is what Paul talks about. He talks about how God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance. The word blessing that's translated is actually the word grace. That when you're generous with yourself, that all of a sudden grace abounds. The world starts to change. If you want to respond to this culture of fear, that's one of the first things you can do. And Paul says, let's do it with joy. I mean, there's so much unhappiness in this world. For heaven's sakes, do it with joy. Let that joy just flow through you. This is what Paul's saying to these Corinthians. Give with joy. Give of yourself with joy. And also, Paul roots all of this in God. There is that notion that everything that we have comes from God in some way, shape, or form. As Christians, we realize how contingent the world is. Yes, I might love working hard. I'm lucky to love my job. But I make no mistakes, but what I've done in my life has been blessed by so many contingent things that have brought about what happens with me. And I'm sure that's true for each and every one of you. At various points, someone has stepped up and helped you out. Some break has come. Something's happened that's outside your control to help you be the person you are. We don't do any of this alone and not by our own will. God is constantly surrounding us in all sorts of ways. Christians have this notion of stewardship. And what that notion is that fundamentally everything we have is a gift of God. We are merely stewards of what we have. And so it's our job to be good stewards of what God has provided to us. Our talents, our joys, and yes, indeed, our money too. How we can use what God has given us to make the world a better place, to bring joy, to bring that grace, to make sure that it abounds, to be instruments of grace. And Paul says all of this is to the glory of God. To show the world out there that you believe that God exists, that a God of love exists, and that matters. Now, part of what my task is today is to make a case for you to give generously to the Hills Church. Because this is, after all, the kickoff of stewardship season. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I beat around the bush. So yes, I want each and every one of you, no matter your resources, to think about what you can contribute to the life and ministry of this congregation. Now, I'm lucky in this, because this means I get to advocate for something that I love with every fiber of my being. So this is a fun part. One of the reasons to give to the Hills Church is for the same reason one of the same reasons I give is that you love this place. You love this sanctuary. You love the people. You love the feeling you get when you come here. You love being able to see these beautiful children get up and lift your soul in that music. You get to see your friends here. You get to think about all the times that you spent here. One reason why you give here is the love of this church. Another reason, of course, is your love of God. I love God with every fiber of my being. And so to be able to support an institution that does too, that stands for that, for me, that's an easy case to make. But there are other reasons. And they're important to think about on a day like today. Last year, I remember talking to friends about stuff going on in the world. We were talking about politics, and I run in a lot of more liberal circles, and so we're talking about this kind of stuff. And so often for these friends of mine, these very liberal friends of mine, the answer is some sort of material option, where it's like, well, if we just have this program that gets started here, or that program that started here, or we somehow can provide for this, then all will be well. And I was arguing with them. I said, no, no, no. The issues in our society are not material, fundamentally. We have more than enough material abundance in our society. The problems in our society are actually spiritual. Those are the problems. We have enough. It's what we do with it that matters. What we do with our stuff and what we do with ourselves. That is at the core of what our country needs, more than anything else, is a spiritual transformation. Because the reality is that the way our society functions could very easily be otherwise. There's this atheist conceit that I run into all the time, where it's like, oh, if we just take out church, all will be well. And I look at them like they have 6 heads. Do you think that without church, people are going to sit around and sing Kumbaya and do nothing but love on one another? The reality is that there's anything that the last 20 years have shown us, the last 10 years have shown us, is that that is not true. Rather than embrace a Christian perspective, people could embrace the perspective of someone like Ayn Rand, who says that altruism is bad and that selfishness is the highest virtue. There are those out there who believe that, who live their lives that way. Is that the world that you want? There are societies out there that do not care properly for children in their society. For children who don't have parents. When I was in Colombia, I remember walking down the streets of Medellin in Colombia and seeing a child sleeping on the street. A child sleeping on the street. That is a spiritual choice. That is a choice that society makes to allow children to stay on the street. We don't do that. We don't do that because of the moral fiber of our country, because of the spiritual nature of our country. In our country, if someone is born disabled, they get support, those parents get support for that child. Because we as a country have decided that that is the right thing to do. It very easily could be otherwise. There are plenty of countries that don't do it. Look at history, look at other places around to the present day. These are choices that our society makes. It's not like, oh, you take away religion and everything will be fine. Human beings naturally can be racist, can be hateful, can be horrible to one another. We know that. I mean, just this past week, there was that group chat among young Republicans that was exposed to the press. I have no doubt the vast majority of people in that chat are good people to those around them. I have no doubt about that. But the influences on their lives, whatever they may be, have led them to say it's okay to say horribly racist things, anti-Semitic things, pro-authoritarian things. And that's wrong. The influences on our society, the influences on people, the influences on people's minds make a vast majority of difference. And again, if you want to think about the one thing that has to change more than anything else, it is that. And that is precisely what churches like the Hills Church do. Say that the values of love matter, compassion matter, care for one another matter. The least of these, children, disabled, widows, matter. They're made in the image of likeness in God, and we should care for them. A number of years ago, I was down at a wedding with a friend of mine in Rio de Janeiro. It's a very fancy wedding. And I remember sitting around a table. This friend of mine worked at a think tank in D.C. And we're sitting around a table. The cool thing about this friend, he's very conservative, close friend of mine, and he now works in the Defense Department. And he has one of the cool things about him is he had all these other friends in think tanks who were there. of all different perspectives. They had such respect for him, they wanted to be there. So there were some people on the left, some people on the right, some people in between, all there. And my friend was very sweet to me because he knew that I'd like sitting at that table. So I sat with all these like brainy, dorky people. It's wonderful. Loved it. And I got a chance to listen to all their different views from different political perspectives. And it was fascinating to hear. But you know what struck me? I was like, y'all have great ideas. But you need people behind you in order to put those into play. Fundamentally, I feel a calling to work in local congregations because what matters most in my mind is actually each and every individual and how we as a society shape on a micro level the views of people. Because none of those grand ideas that those fancy people in DC have can be put into place without the moral backing that's formed in places like this. And it's on a one-to-one basis that happens. You can go come up with all the policy proposals you want. But you need people who sit in the pews or in other places in our society to say, that's the right idea. That's where we should go. And this is what kind of stuff that we do here. And when I think about the place that I want to live in, when I think about the community I want to live in, the culture I want to live in, I want to live in a place that's shaped by the Hills Church. I want to live in a place where you can have all these wonderful kids come here and go up and spend time with Sally and be told that they are a gift of God, each and every one of them in their uniqueness. One of the things I love about the kids in this church, there are a lot of unique kids in this church. If you doubt me, go up and go check out the Sunday school. It can be rambunctious. And I love that. And I love the fact that they can come here and be told that they're loved and they're good and they're valued. And Sally works so hard on that. I want to invest in that. When I think about our youth in society and all the things that are going on for our youth, all the stresses they're under, you think about the rise in youth suicides, youth mental health issues, eating disorders, the incredible stress of college admissions and the future of the world, all the stuff that youth go on. I want to make sure that the youth can come to a place and have someone like Zach see them for who they are and express to them the love of God for them. That's what I want. I want to come to a place here where I can be elevated by the incredible choir, where Maggie and Lisa and Michael and Dylan can sing and I can hear God singing through them and be elevated through that. I want to come to a place where people look out for one another when you're grieving, when you're going through a personal struggle, when you have questions that are weighing down your mind. You can come to a place where someone else can see you for who you are and say that you're loved. For me, the choice to give to the Hills Church is a simple one. It is a simple one. I see all the work this place does. I see all the work this place will continue to do. And I'm saying that is where I want to put my money. An organization that works for love, for care, that tries to be a place that can bring together people of different perspectives. I value a congregation that has different political perspectives, particularly in a time like this, so we can talk to one another, so we can listen to one another, so we can lift up God's love, so we can help people in the community. It is easy to give to this place. This place sustains me. This place holds me up when I need it. I see God in this place. And I hope you do too.